Okay, hello and welcome to podcast number 1 for Digital Craft Factory. My name is Ludo, and today I'm going to show you how to edit this photograph in Lightroom 4.3. So before we get going, it's very important that you get Lightroom 4.3. If you got 4, just update to 4.3. There are a few tweaks, a few things in Lightroom and the way it looks that are slightly different, and a few options as well. But if you haven't got it, it's fine. Most of the work that we're going to do, you can do it in different Lightroom, even number 3. It might look slightly different. Okay, so this photograph was taken last August, so quite a while ago, and on the seafront in a small town called Hove in southern England. It was about an hour and a half before sunset, and I thought it looked really good. The colors were fantastic. The sky was great because they were like small clouds, slim clouds, and they seemed to be like moving, and it was sort of peaceful in a way, but they were beautiful colors. So I took the shot, and when I transferred it from my camera to the computer, that's what I got, and it's a nice shot, nice enough, but it's not at all what I saw when I was there. So I left it in the folder, never looked back again, and until a few days ago when I looked through my folders and saw this picture, and I thought actually the composition is good. The composition is quite nice because it follows the rule of thirds. For those who don't know this rule, basically you shouldn't center your subject. Obviously there are exceptions, but most of the time it's nice to off-center the horizon or the subject, like this lamppost. So the lamppost is not centered, it's slightly to the left, and the horizon is slightly sort of towards the bottom. I know it's not much, but then this photograph can be cropped, and that's the idea. I want to crop a bit of the grass afterwards, so it will be off-centered. Okay, but anyway, this is a JPEG. It's not a RAW file, but even with JPEGs, you get less information in the photograph than if you use RAW files. But we can still get back some of the colors, some of the information that is in this photograph. So let's get started. First I'm going to start with the basic panel in the develop module. Okay, so I'm going to show you what we're going to achieve, obviously. Let me check. I think should be appearing here. No, it's not. Here it is. Hey, so that's what we're going to get. That's the look that I like. When I saw the scene, it was very much like this. It was more dramatic, but a lot more colors, and I just added a little bit more as well because that's what I wanted to get. So that's the look that I'm looking for. Okay, I'm going to reset it all and start in the basic panel. The first thing I do usually is just retouch the highlights and the shadows. But first the photo is a bit crooked, it's a little bit imbalanced, so I'm going to go to this tool and select that straighten tool. I'm going to click and drag up and up to make sure that the horizon is straight. It's like this, and close, so that's fine, the horizon is sort of straight. And what I'm going to do is go to the highlights and bring the highlights to -100, and then bring the shadows to +100. Okay. Next, I'm going to do the whites and the blacks to add more contrast. So a good thing to do to make sure that you don't get rid of the details in the shadows and the highlights, to make sure there's parts of the photograph are not just white or black. What I do is I press Alt on the keyboard and then drag the whites towards the right, and as soon as I start, so it's all black, and as soon as I start seeing some pixels, I'm going to release. Oh, that's far too much. I'm going to go back a little bit, just like this, and I release. I'm going to do the same with the black, so Alt is pressed down, and I'm going to move the blacks towards the left. So with the blacks I can add a little bit more. If I see a few pixels, it's fine, it's not too bad. It's just the whites, I don't want the whites to be just completely white. Okay, now I'm going to add some contrast, and maybe I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit. Okay, like this. And already you can see that just the clouds are coming back, the colors are coming back, but it's not everything I want. So next I'm going to use the temperature. So it's just a question of playing a little bit with temperature. It was not too warm, but maybe the tint a little bit, give that purple sort of sunset look. Okay, so I quite like the color here on the clouds. However, the sunset here, the sun that is appearing behind the clouds, it's not popping, there's no impact. So I'm going to use the adjustment brush tool, and here I'm going to choose temperature, and it's warmer here. And what I'm going to do is make sure that the feather and the flow are set to 100. The auto mask isn't checked, and with the scroll on my mouse I can just reduce the size of the mouse. And I'm just going to paint around here a little bit, and if I want to delete something I press Alt and it's minus brush. So I can also, with the scroll on my mouse, I can just reduce or increase the size of the brush. I'm just going to go like this a little bit, and just to make sure that it's just right in the middle, not on top of the clouds. It should be behind the clouds, just like this. I quite like that. I might just change the exposure. No, I don't want to. So double click on exposure to set it back. Add some clarity maybe. Saturation. Saturation is quite a good one. Maybe more temperature. Okay, I'm going to keep it like this for now. Click done. Okay, next thing what I can do is check the white balance. No, actually I can't check the white balance because it's a raw file. So with a raw file you can have different options for the white balance, but because it's a JPEG I can't do it. Okay, once I've done that I'm going to go to vibrance and crank it up a little bit. Okay, it's not too bad. Okay, I'm going to leave the saturation how it is. Okay, once I've done this, what I'm going to do is create a neutral density filter. So I'm going to use the graduated filter, and I'm going to go to exposure and reduce exposure to about 30, and it's just a question of trying see what works. Okay, that's quite nice. And let's see, minus 40, bit of contrast. Yeah, bit of clarity maybe, so more punch to the clouds. That's quite nice, yes. Okay, that's quite good. Now the sunset is a bit too much, a bit too saturated. So what I'm going to do is click on the brush and find a pin that you use to brush the sun, and I'm going to reduce the saturation here a little bit, and maybe add some exposure, brightness, like this. Yeah, that's quite good. I quite like that. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is scroll down and see maybe a lens correction. I think maybe I can try lens correction. So if you have Lightroom 4.3, you should have the three options here: profile, color, and manual. Go to profile and enable profile correction. Choose Nikon here, and what it does is just rectify problems that you have with your lens and correct the corners as well. It was a bit darker earlier, as you can see here, before and after, so that's better. And we're going to go to color and check remove chromatic aberrations. That's just for the little bit of colors that you get sometimes around the subject and elements between dark and light colors. Okay, manual, and I'm going to go maybe to the verticals, and I never know which way to go, if I have to go left or right. Yes, I went left, so it's minus, and that's minus 7. Yeah, that's quite good here. Okay, minus 7. Now, as you can see, there's a little bit of grey here because I moved the photograph a little bit, so it's a little bit grey here at the bottom, and a little bit grey here on this side. So what I need to do is check constraint crop. and it's going to crop out all the grey bits here. So that's quite good, quite like it. Next thing I'm going to do is go to Effect, and I'm going to add a vignette around the photograph just to give more impact and attract the eyes towards the middle, the center of the photograph. So I'm going to go to, for the amount, I'm going to go to probably about -19 for now, and I quite like that. If you think it's too strong, you can either reduce the amount, but you can also change the style and go from highlight priority to color priority. And it's not as strong, so the vignette blends a bit more with the photograph, the highlights and the shadows that you have in your image. But I think I'm going to go back to highlight priority and maybe move some sliders like the highlights, maybe. This sliders just to help you blend your vignettes. Okay, maybe I can reduce it a little bit to -14. So that's before the vignetting here and after. It makes a difference. You don't. So if you keep looking at the photograph, you don't really see it, but when you compare before and after, you get this massive difference. Okay, and now finally, I'm going to go to camera calibration. And actually, don't really need to do anything. Once again, it's because of JPEG. I'm used to work with raw files. So when you have a raw file, you can go to camera calibration. In profile, you can change the profile and choose different Adobe profiles, such as neutral, landscape. It's going to change the colors. So sometimes it's just good to have a look, but in this case it's JPEG, so I can't do it. So I'm going to go to detail, and here I'm going to try and reduce the noise and maybe sharpen the photograph a little bit. I don't know if you can see on your screen, but there's a little bit of pixels here, a bit of noise. So there's color noise, and you can zoom in on your photograph as well, just to have a better idea, and you can see all the noise here. So the first thing I do is that I reduce the color noise reduction. So I take this usually up to like between 80 and 100%, and it's going to reduce the pixels, the grain that is like with different colors and blues and red and yellows and greens. So I've reduced that, and now I'm going to go to luminance, and usually I drag it to about 30, and I see what it's going to do. So it takes a bit of time, but it's going to reduce all those little grains that you got here. Okay, well, I don't know if you can see a difference, but there's a massive difference. There's a big difference. There's absolutely no noise here left. I don't know if I can show you before and after. So I'm going to show you the before. That's before. There's a lot of noise here, and then the after, and it's going to be all smooth. It all disappears around the clouds and the sky, and the sky is the most important. As you can see here, it's all smooth. And I'm going to try to do a bit of sharpening. But because this photograph is mainly about the sky and the sea and the clouds, it's sort of very flat. There's no building. It's nice when you have a building to have a bit of sharpening. But in this case, I don't want too much sharpening. So what I did is I moved the slider to 50. It's probably a bit too much. But the other tip and trick to do is press down the Alt key on your keyboard and go to masking. And if you click on it, you're going to see if the grass is all white, and if you move the slider towards the right, it's going to change, and there's going to be a lot of black and white, and the white is basically where the sharpening is going to happen. So I don't want the sharpening to happen on the clouds too much, so I'm going to crank up the masking up to maybe 100%. So just the lamppost and the railing are going to be sharpened. So that's quite good. Once I've done that, I think it's pretty good actually. The one thing I like to do is, like, the lamppost is a bit dark, so maybe I can lighten. What I'm going to do is take the brush, go to dodge. So what dodge does is just adds a bit of exposure, and I can press the space key on the keyboard and then just click and move. And then with my brush, I'm just going to add a bit of and use the space key just to move in the photograph, and just drag and brush the lamppost. Okay, click done. Okay, that's a bit better. The lamppost is a bit brighter, which is good. Now, there's just one thing that I quite like to do is just add a little bit of focus and depth of field in a photograph. So what I'm going to do is take the brush tool again, and this time I'm going to go to exposure, and I want to add a little bit of light here. So the exposure is minus 30 because that's what I used last, but I'm going to move it to about 30 and see what it does. And I'm going to just paint over here. Okay, and that might be a bit too much, but what I'm going to do is just reduce to about 10, 20. 20 is not bad. Obviously there's a bit too much here, so what I'm going to do is press Alt to delete, reduce the brush, and just delete a little bit of the highlights that I created in the sky. I don't want that. Okay, and then reduce and just add more, maybe here, and delete maybe a bit here. It's create sort of a nice effects. Yeah, I think it's quite nice. Okay, try to make it a bit more natural. Okay, it's a bit too bright, so maybe reduce it to 10. Okay, this is very subtle, but I quite like it. It's very subtle, but I quite like it. Okay, so I think that's it for this photograph. I mean, you can add more depth to the photograph by adding a new brush, new exposure brush, and just maybe paint somewhere around here to just attract the eyes and guide the eyes through, and then reduce it to maybe 10 or 20. 20 is good. So okay. So that's our photograph that has been edited in Lightroom. I'm going to show you the before. Here's the before, and here's the after. There's big difference. Okay. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and you can leave me any message that you want, or any question that you have, or any tips. You're more than welcome. Thank you for following this first podcast, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.